Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon News Update for December 2nd, 2025. Today we are going to start with a letter written by Brandy Hicken to the University of Cincinnati Athletic Director John Cunningham that says, "Dear Mr. Cunningham, I am writing to you from my heart as a disheartened college football fan, more specifically as a BYU football fan and member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormons. As a BYU alumni and huge fans of college football, my husband and I took the opportunity to travel 4.5 hours from our little city in Grand Blanc, Michigan, to come spectate and enjoy our favorite pastime at the BYU versus Cincinnati football game at Neipert Stadium last night. I want to provide a little bit of background for you in order to portray the strength and courage it took for us to travel to this event and really try to enjoy ourselves. You see, just 8 short weeks ago, while attending church, we were attacked at our place of worship simply for being Mormon. Someone with hatred in their heart rammed their truck into the front of our church building, entered the chapel, and began shooting us and setting our church on fire while many people were still hiding inside. As my family, me, my husband, and our 3 young children ran for our lives. My husband and my 5-year-old daughter were both shot. I was also running with my 15-month-old baby and my 3-year-old in my arms as I was struck in my back with shrapnel. I will spare you any further details about the nightmare we lived through that day and the recovery that has followed, but miraculously, me and my family all made it out alive. The anxiety and fear we have felt since that day has been debilitating. We have put in a lot of work in that short 8 weeks so we can try to feel some sort of safety and normalcy again and enjoy the things we used to, including football games. We had been planning to come see this game for months as we don't get the opportunity to see many BYU games in person since we moved across the country for my husband's medical training. We almost didn't come because it felt scary and overwhelming since the attack on our church. However, we know we cannot live in fear and we need to enjoy things that used to make us happy. We decided to come, and that took a lot for us both mentally and physically. I was nervous about putting on my BYU fan gear that day because I knew it would identify me as one of the Mormons. I did it anyway. I was apprehensive when I walked down to my seat and saw that the nearest exit was pretty far from me. I continued to my seat anyway. We came, we smiled, we cheered. We enjoyed ourselves until the University of Cincinnati fans began to chant F the Mormons. This is not a new chant. This is not a chant that is specific to your university. This is a chant I've heard before while enjoying a football game, whether in person or on TV. It's always disheartening to hear. However, now that we Mormons have been quite literally targeted, attacked, chased, shot at, and some of us have been killed simply for being Mormon, this chant is no longer just disheartening. It's crippling, it's personal, it's unacceptable, period. While I did hear the announcer give a warning over the speakers at the game that such chants will not be tolerated, it was simply just that, a warning. It was not just a few fans. It was tens, possibly hundreds of the university's student fans chanting F the Mormons. Please, Mr. Cunningham, do not tolerate it. Remove them from the game. Don't let them come back. Educate them on the seriousness of their actions. Set that standard and expectation moving forward and enforce it. We are hurting badly. We just want to enjoy the things that make us happy again without the fear of being targeted and attacked for our religious beliefs. I know you have no control over the Cincy fans on the shuttle after the game, ranting about Mormons and how awful we are and how we must have just paid off the refs because we're corrupt and evil. I don't get it, but I am used to it. It's not new to me to hear this stuff and these huge misconceptions about my faith, but now it is personal. Now it is me fearing for my life everywhere I go because someone decided to take it there. Someone tried to kill me, my kids, and my husband. Someone killed 4 of my friends. Now the chanting means something more than it used to. I know you can't control the actions and words of the fans on the bus. However, I do believe you have the ability to get control of the students' hurtful and hateful chanting. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If I am mistaken about any actions that were or were not taken as a result of the chanting, please feel free to contact me. I would welcome the reassurance. Sincerely, Brandy Hicken, a fellow college football fan, a Mormon, a Christian, a mass casualty hate crime survivor, a human deserving of respect. Now, I absolutely agree that this family should not have had to fear for their lives at church or at the football stadium. And on that note, I want to present a fictional but poignant form of this letter that I think many active members of the church, especially top leaders, need to hear. Dear members and leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I am writing to you from my heart as a disheartened, born-in-the-covenant child of God, more specifically, as a mother and lifelong devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormons. As active members, my husband and I took the opportunity to travel to Salt Lake to watch the October General Conference in person, in hopes of feeling the Lord's love for us and our family. I want to provide a little bit of background for you in order to portray the strength and courage it took for us to travel to this event and really try to enjoy ourselves. You see, just 8 short weeks ago, after our family was repeatedly attacked from within our faith, we lost the most beautiful part of our world. Someone with fear in their heart, fear of disappointing their extended family, fear of disappointing their bishop, fear of disappointing God, took their own life. Our child, who loved the gospel and the promise of eternal family, could not reconcile the person they were, a cherished member of the LGBTQ+ community, with the rules, policies, and exclusionary culture of the church. They were a BYU student, and the burden of the honor code and the constant message of love the sinner, hate the sin became a suffocating weight. I will spare you any further details about the nightmare we lived through that day, but we, the survivors, are forever broken. The anxiety and fear we have felt since that day has been debilitating. We have put in a lot of work in that short 8 weeks so we can try to feel some sort of safety and normalcy again and enjoy the things we used to, including General Conference. We had been planning to come see the sessions for months, as we don't get the opportunity to see many sessions in person since we moved across the country from my husband's medical training. We almost didn't come because it felt scary and overwhelming since the loss of our child. However, we know we cannot live in fear, and we need to enjoy the things that used to make us happy. We decided to come, and that took a lot for us both mentally and physically. I was nervous putting on my Sunday best that day and walking toward the conference center because I knew it would identify me as belonging to the Mormons, the same institution that my child was rejected by, and that ultimately took them from us. I did it anyway. I was apprehensive when I walked down to my seat and saw the saints around me all seemingly happy in their Mormon lives. I continued to my seat anyway. We came, we listened, we communed with God. We enjoyed ourselves until Dallin Oaks, the very prophet of the church, gave his talk doubling down on the words presented in the family, a proclamation to the world. This is not a new bit of rhetoric. This is not a theme that is specific to just this conference. They were hurtful words I've heard before while enjoying conference, whether in person or on TV. It's always disheartening to hear. However, now that we, as a family, have been quite literally targeted, judged, and lost our child simply for being who they were inside Mormon culture, this line of thinking is no longer just disheartening. It's crippling, it's personal, it's unacceptable, period. While I have heard previous speakers give admonitions over the pulpit to be peacemakers and to love one another, those words suddenly felt hollow. Dallin's words were not just his, but the echoes of tens, possibly hundreds of previous sermons given by Mormon leaders. Please, dear members and leaders, do not continue to perpetuate this harm. Remove this rhetoric and hate from your hearts. Don't let the love of Jesus be covered up by the thoughts of men. Educate yourselves on the seriousness of your actions. Set the standard and expectation moving forward that love is love. We are hurting badly. We just want to enjoy the things that used to make us happy again without the fear of being targeted and attacked for the way that we have chosen to love and show love, or in our case, without the fear of this external hatred echoing the internal violence that destroyed our family. I know you have no control over previous prophets ranting about queer people and how awful they are and how they must have just made terrible choices or are corrupt and evil. I don't get it, but I am used to it. It's not new to me to hear this stuff and these huge misconceptions about love. But now it's personal. Now it is me fearing for my ability to breathe everywhere I go because the leaders and members' own hatred simply validates the internal pain of a church that can't find room for a beautiful child. Now the rhetoric means something more than it used to. I know you can't control the actions and words of everyone. However, I do believe you have the ability to at least start a movement of change toward love and inclusion. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Sincerely, a fellow member, a Mormon, a Christian, a mother whose queer child did not survive the faith, a human deserving of respect. I think I need to take a little break and compose myself for a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, next we will go to a few updates about Wade Kristofferson, brother of First Presidency member Todd Kristofferson, lest we let this fade away because of the end of a news cycle. First off, a bit of pertinent info from floodlit.org where it says, a stake president allegedly confirmed in 2024 that he knew the church had placed and then rescinded child protection measures against Wade Kristofferson, which I'm guessing means that an annotation was added to his membership records and then removed. In the church's general handbook, it says, only the First Presidency may authorize removing an annotation from a membership record. If the stake president recommends removing an annotation, he uses leader and clerk resources. The office of the First Presidency notifies him if the recommendation is approved or not. Floodlit also says Mormon apostle D. Todd Kristofferson allegedly knew as early as 2018 that his brother, Wade Kristofferson, allegedly essayed a child in the late 1980s and early 1990s, which leads me to this Reddit post that says, 15 questions for President Kristofferson the members have a right to know the answers to. President Kristofferson, when did you first learn your brother was excommunicated, and how did you not immediately grasp the seriousness of what he had done? Did you know about behavior that should have been reported to law enforcement, and if so, why did you choose not to protect potential victims? Before his excommunication, did your brother, your family, or anyone else ever warn you about troubling behavior, and why didn't you act on it? Did you influence or smooth the path for his rebaptism, and if so, why didn't you insist on safety restrictions? During his rebaptism process, did you say anything to stop him from ever holding leadership again, or did you stay silent? When did you find out he was being placed in bishoprics, and why didn't you step in immediately? Did you ever warn local leaders that your brother might be unsafe in positions of trust? How could you think it was acceptable for him to serve in a YSA bishopric, and why didn't you object? When bishops or stake presidents asked for your perspective, did you ever caution them, or did you allow them to proceed blind? Did you ever take your concerns to the First Presidency or area presidency, or did you choose not to escalate? Did you hide behind church confidentiality instead of speaking up to protect members? Did church culture pressure you to keep quiet even when silence could put people at risk? Do you now agree that people with serious past discipline should never be placed in high trust callings? Do you acknowledge that leadership failures at multiple levels allowed your brother back into positions where he could harm others? Will you support a fully independent investigation into how this happened, including scrutiny of your own decisions? And finally, this plea from Floodlit. Please contact floodlit.org if you are a survivor or know a survivor of alleged SA by Wade Kristofferson. If you have any information about his leadership, membership history in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or if you knew him personally. We, floodlit.org, are currently helping several survivors to assemble information they can give to civil authorities or service providers. Thank you so much. Since breaking the news on November 20th of pending child SA charges against Wade Kristofferson, floodlit.org communicated with several alleged abuse survivors and their relatives, helping some of them contact each other and giving them contact information of civil authorities investigating the case. One alleged victim said she was sickened that it is 40 years later and asked how many more people were harmed that didn't need to be. Another victim's relative said, "I've been waiting for years for this to happen and for justice to be served," adding that they were disgusted when the Mormon Church made Wade Kristofferson's brother, Todd Kristofferson, an apostle in 2008. The church is led by 15 apostles. Todd Kristofferson is the second counselor in the First Presidency, its presiding governing body. Today, Floodlit updated our case report on Wade Kristofferson. So far, we have identified at least 9 alleged SA victims in this case dating back to 1985. We need your help to confirm details that may aid accountability and help survivors heal. Please go to floodlit.org if you think you can help. Next, we will go to fullerconsideration.com for some information from the Deseret Demographer. The Deseret Demographer offers an independent analysis of the worldwide activity and growth patterns of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, synthesizing official church statistical reports, independent survey data, academic research, and user-submitted attendance counts. My favorite image is this graph that shows global LDS activity estimates and the green portion that represents active LDS or people who attend 40 plus weeks a year, which would have included me right up until the very Sunday I stopped attending and didn't go back. That number is estimated at 1,710,852, which I think is likely fairly accurate. The Mormon Church is certainly not a 17 million member entity. Next, we will go to yahoo.com, where it says President Dallin H. Oaks became the church's prophet president on October 14th, following the death of his friend and the church's 17th prophet, President Russell M. Nelson. President Oaks has made several leadership changes since then. First, President Nelson's death left a vacancy in the first presidency. President Oaks called President Henry B. Eyring as his first counselor and then called Elder D. Todd Kristofferson from the Quorum of the 12 to serve as his second counselor. That, in turn, created a vacancy in the Quorum of the 12. President Oaks filled it by calling Bishop Gerald Causet from his place as presiding bishop to serve as an apostle. President Oaks then moved to fill the vacancy in the presiding bishopric. He called Bishop W. Christopher Waddell, who had been a counselor, to be the presiding bishop, and added Elder Sean Douglas as a new counselor in the presiding bishopric. Bishop Douglas earned an accounting degree at the University of Utah and worked as a CPA for Price Waterhouse and as the chief financial officer at the Huntsman Corporation. That change led to another cascade of callings. Elder Douglas had been serving as the Mexico area president. President Oaks called Elder Jose L. Alfonso to that role. That left a vacancy in the U.S. Southwest area presidency, where Elder Alonso had been the area president. President Oaks called Elder Michael A. Dunn as the new president. That creates a vacancy in the position of Assistant Executive Director of the Church Communication Department, where Elder Dunn had been serving. It also leaves a vacancy in another role Elder Dunn had as a member of two committees, Church Communication and International Coordinating. My thoughts? The cascade model ensures that when a vacancy is created at one level, the replacement is sourced from the layer immediately below it. This is highly efficient and predictable, resembling an established corporate succession plan or a promotion ladder. The core conflict arises because the church's doctrine teaches that every leader, from the prophet down to a Sunday school teacher, is chosen by God through personal divine revelation. The process is supposed to be individualized. It should transcend administrative needs or organizational timelines, and supposedly calls are confirmed by the Holy Ghost to both the person extending the call and the person receiving it. The process of a cascade calling challenges this claim by suggesting that the pool of candidates is structurally limited and that the person chosen is often the next logical person in the succession pipeline, not necessarily the one who required a dramatic, revelatory intervention to be identified. Next, let's go to some information from the Salt Lake Tribune, where it says, super sad, an LDS church-owned modest clothing shop is closing. In late September, the modest clothing brand Sweet Salt made its final social media post. From day one, Sweet Salt Clothing has celebrated modest, inclusive fashion that helps women feel confident and beautiful. It read, "Thank you for embracing the vision and being part of the Sweet Salt family for these past 13 years. The Sweet Salt closure is complicated by the fact that the brand's parent company, Deseret Book, is an arm of Deseret Management, a for-profit company associated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The origins of Sweet Salt and the reason the dress shop was affiliated with the bookstore also are a bit of a mystery. Its website says it was created by a team of women on a mission to make women feel confident and beautiful with modest and fashionable clothes. But unlike many companies in the social media age, the women who apparently founded it are not named in that history and never appear in its social media posts or on its site. Sweet Salt directed inquiries about its founding and its closing to Deseret Book, which did not respond to repeated requests for an interview or comment. Neither Deseret Management, which oversees Deseret Book, nor a spokesperson for the church responded to the same request. It seems the church will continue to impose strict modesty standards on members while simultaneously doing nothing to help them find clothes that will actually be affordable and cover garments. Must not have been a lucrative enough business for them. And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, "So often, children are punished for being human. Children are not allowed to have grumpy moods, bad days, disrespectful tones, or bad attitudes. Yet we adults have them all the time. None of us are perfect, and we must stop holding our children to a higher standard of perfection than we can attain ourselves. And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.